I'm going to give a basic overview of what overgeneration is and why it's important. Here we go. So basically, simply put, overgeneration occurs when there's an excess of real-time supplies versus demand. So those two have to be in balance, and when they're not, that causes things such as grid instability. It can cause brownouts and even blackouts. And the CAISO, the California Independent System Operator, they are tasked with maintaining grid reliability and stability. So they have to actually balance supply and demand on a second-by-second basis. So overgeneration is a challenge, as Lori had mentioned, because of California's phenomenal success in its renewable energy goals, the most recent being the 100% carbon-free electric supplies by 2045. That has caused an increase in the frequency and amount of overgeneration we're seeing, mostly due to solar and wind coinciding at the same time. A little bit of background, overgeneration is not new. It used to occur more seasonally and sporadically. So for example, when heavy rains would flood the market with low-cost hydropower, but because of all of the solar being brought online, we're seeing it more regularly between the hours of about 7:30 to 6 p.m. So this is the duck curve that I'm sure everyone has seen or at least heard about. We've evolved it to add, let me see if this works. Okay, to add solar coming online within the next 5 years, so by 2023. So a little bit of background on this, if you're not familiar, this red line right here, that's the net load 2020 line. So that's basically the forecasted electric demand minus solar and wind. So basically real-time demand, the difference between real-time demand and real-time solar and wind. And then this line right here, as you see the duck getting deeper, these are actually the amount of solar that are going to come online by 2023. The CAISO has an interconnection queue, so we pulled the data from this, and we're not saying all of this is going to go online, and this is large-scale solar PV, but 23,832 megawatts is slated to be online by 2023. And out of that, about 9,000 megawatts already have agreements. So they've invested money, they have the permits, those will likely go through. And for a little bit of perspective, in 2018, the state's overall utility scale solar PV was 10,736 megawatts. So we are kind of on track to triple the amount within the next 5 years, which is huge. It's a large amount. And these colorful lines you're seeing, those are just the minimum generation or non-dispatchable resources. So these are the resources that the CAISO has no control over. So they can't shut those off for regulatory, reliability, and other factors. So that's 18,000 megawatts that are just there. So the difference between these lines, basically, this is the amount that might have to be curtailed or otherwise managed by the CAISO. So we're looking, if it all does go online, that's about 15,000 megawatts at its peak that will need to be managed, which is a lot. This load duration curve is just showing this in another way. It's basically showing the load, which is that blue line, and comparing it with the minimum generation resources plus the solar. So it's a lot more complicated than it needs to look, but this is basically the important part, that oversupply yellow. Oversupply is the same thing as overgeneration. And so it's basically showing that if all of that utility scale solar does go online, this is 2023, then about 45% of the time for that year, we will be in overgeneration. This is also showing it in another light. It's showing all of the energy production. You're seeing that it's going to be a problem between about 7:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's when the minimum generation and the solar are going to coincide. And just to note, as Lori mentioned, these do not include any behind-the-meter solars that are going to be coming online. And so they have, the 2019 building energy efficiency standards are requiring solar PV on homes. And the CPUC has been funding programs for low-income housing in disadvantaged communities, so that is another beast that is not even shown here. It also doesn't include any other renewable sources that may be slated to come online, so hydro, biogas, wind, so that's not included in this. A little bit of perspective. So because utility scale battery energy storage technology is still in its infancy, the main tool the CAISO has to manage overgeneration right now is through market-based curtailments. There's been a lot of negative press about California negative prices. So, the newspapers had said things like, California has to pay other states to take our power. And so we just wanted to show and give that a little bit of perspective. That's actually not true. Only 0.19% of total load in 2018 was actually curtailed, and the CAISO has done a really good job at managing overgeneration thus far, and the negative prices have actually been really modest, so we just wanted to show that. But as we've seen with the adjusted duck curve, there's an aggressive outlook for solar PV, and so it's going to obviously become more of an issue. So we're going to need to find near-term interim solutions that can help reduce the frequency, the cost, and the risk of overgeneration, which is why we are here today. And so just a little background as I'm going to introduce John, but we're just here because we know that the water and the wastewater sector has really unique capabilities in being able to change the time and the quantity and even the location of their electric use. So we're here to kind of look at the strategies that can be employed to help create that flexible DR that Lori mentioned, the two-way DR, ramping up electrical use when needed while also being able to still ramp down.